Let's move ahead to Sunday, Manchester Derby. Already Manchester United have had success against the Manchester City side that will be without Erling Haaland. And come next season, they'll be without Kevin De Bruyne. It was announced today by the Belgian midfielder that he's moving on to pastures new. Will it be San Diego in Major League Soccer? Will it be Saudi Arabia? We don't know yet. But Pep Guardiola, at his press conference, was effusive in his praise for his midfield playmaker.
I think I've been involved in, I read today or yesterday, 280 goals in terms of goals and assists in the Premier League. So the Premier League is one of the greatest midfielders I ever play in this country, and I think that this club is no doubt about that. Always when you say is the greatest, not the greatest, so it's like always have to be careful for respect for the, players that play main roles and incredible players that play for the last, 20, 30 years in this club. But come on, there's no doubt he's one of the greatest for sure, because of his consistency, except the last years, year and a half, that I had injury problems, and the consistency and in important games and not important games, and every 3 days being there all the time. So that is no doubt.
Don, when Kevin De Bruyne was at his best, who was better in Premier League history in that position?
I don't think many. I think different players have got different attributes, and we could mention probably 50 players, but the guys like Ryan Giggs spring to mind, and Paul Scholes and Steven Gerrard. Then you can look at people like Cantona and the Zolas of this world. There's been some sensational number 10s, but I think the best way to look at Kevin De Bruyne, I think when you amalgamate the best ever Premier League 11, 100% he gets in it. He's getting it every single time, because the guy was a genius. He's special. He sees a picture that other players couldn't see. When he was fit and in his pomp, he was fit. He was box to box. He could do everything to score goals, right foot, left foot. The numbers of his assists, I think he's only behind Ryan Giggs in that column. Pep talked about him there. And I think the best way to sort of describe it is there's different attributes and words that you use, like legend and class. A Liverpool fan tweeted today, and I don't think he was far wrong, and he said, during the Jurgen Klopp years and the Guardiola years, where the two sides were fighting for a title, if Liverpool had Kevin De Bruyne, Liverpool would have won everything every single year. He was that good, that special.
You would hope that Kevin De Bruyne's last game for Manchester City, from a Man City perspective, would be the FA Cup and lifting it. But it's on the 16th of May, and there's still 2 games after that. It's just stupid how the Premier League ends after the FA Cup this year. But that's the way it is. So whenever his last game is, if it is in their final game of the season, I think Pep was asked. Well, Club World Cup, of course. Domestic game, it will be the Premier League. Then you've got the Club World Cup. But Pep Guardiola was asked about a statue, and he said, look, if there's ever going to be one player at Manchester City, because remember as well, he's the last survivor, Janusz, from when Pep came in. He's the one that's still there. Everyone else has gone. Whether he's meritorious of a statue, how would you sum up his key time? Because as Pep said, injuries and age and whatever the last year and a half has been difficult for him. But at his best, is he in your Premier League all-time 11?
Absolutely. I remember a couple of seasons ago, before the injuries, there's 2 or 3 years where, and I don't get that feeling very often. I have a hard time saying who's the best in the world, second, third, comparing players is very, very difficult. But I remember talking about this here, at ESPN and probably with you as well. To me, he was unplayable. He was best in the world. There were moments where he was able to take over the game in such way that only the greatest playmakers can do, right? Because it's not easy to take over the game. And when I say take over the game, completely take over the game. Not only in his passing, which was absolutely incredible. First of all, it was risky. He never shied away from that, by the way. And, we saw him at his best with Haaland. But even before that, the way he threaded passes sometimes was mind-boggling to me, right? And the greatest playmakers do that. They take the team. And, we often talk about the goal scorer. That's hard, obviously, the hardest skill in the game. And that's important. But that's why, to me, there was a moment that he was by far the best player in the world. He didn't get that accolade. That's fair enough. But an incredible player, and just a feeling that I think big time career cut short. There's something, it's probably the injuries, but I just feel that there was so much more to come from him. And part of the main reason, by the way, why Manchester City are where they are, massive reason. I mean, we can talk about other players, what has happened to Manchester City, but if he was healthy and anywhere near the form that we were used to, I don't think we're talking about Manchester City the way we talk about them now.
Yeah, that's fair. And look, there's suggestions that his representatives have been in talks. This isn't something he just woke up this morning and thought, I'm going to retire from Manchester City today and move elsewhere. This has been in the pipeline for a while. The suggestion is, Don, that he might be on the move to Major League Soccer, and his representatives have been in talks with San Diego, who are coming into the league. So that might be a move. And he turns 34. It's not going to be a play every game for Kevin De Bruyne, but he would enjoy that. The sunshine down at San Diego.
I think San Diego just said no.
Did they?
I think, there's reporting here that San Diego. There's other MLS teams,
of course,
without names, but San Diego supposedly said no.
So MLS, Saudi Arabia. Anyway, we don't know where he'll end up. We also don't know if he's going to start this weekend in the Manchester Derby on Sunday. Now, what we do know is that Manchester United have got a big game against Lyon in midweek. So, Don, this would normally be a ridiculous question. What's a bigger game, the Manchester Derby or a European tie? I don't think it is here because their season is all about Europe, Manchester United. So is Thursday bigger than Sunday for them?
It probably is, but I don't think that'll come into the equation when Ruben Amorim picks his team, because he'll still want pride. He'll still know the pride when you play in big derbies, and this is a huge derby. You couldn't afford to drop 4 or 5, and I say this very loosely, by the way, their best players, because they haven't got the best players. He can't afford to go into the City game and get walloped 4 or 5, because then it would be an embarrassment. So I just think to build momentum into that Lyon game, I think you've got to go strong. I firmly believe that. I felt that way throughout my career or being as a broadcaster pundit. I never really get the resting players one. I understand it. But I think the best way of going into a Lyon game is by playing your best side against Man City and trying to beat them. And if you do, I guarantee you the players won't feel any tiredness whatsoever going to the Lyon game. So I think he'll have to go as strong as possible.
Amorim doesn't need to look too far back for his pre-game team talk, Janusz, does he? The last few minutes of the game at the Etihad earlier this season when Bruno Fernandes scored the penalty and then Amad Diallo got the winner late on. Whether or not it was a smash and grab depends on the colour of your scarf. But how do you approach this if you're Manchester United playing at home against Manchester City, knowing that you're probably not going to get that much of the ball? What are your tactics for Amorim?
Yeah, I mean, same as we've seen from Manchester United against Manchester City or Liverpool, Arsenal, right? I mean, home or away. I mean, Old Trafford is not the fortress that it once was. We all know that. I think they'll know that the result here matters, as Don has said. I mean, I think it's going to be a strong team. It has to be, right? Because you don't want to go into that Lyon game with your head down. I mean, they play relatively well against Nottingham Forest, but still lost, right? So another loss here, and I just think it's going to be difficult. You look at a Manchester United that's going to play on the break. They have, they almost have an excuse to do that, right? In the past, we would say, how can you play like this at Old Trafford or anywhere for that matter, if you're a Manchester United player? But we've gotten used to that right now. So I think we all know where Manchester United are at the moment. There are no high expectations whatsoever from us at the very least. I would bet even from their own fans, but it is a Manchester derby, and I think it's going to be, as you've said, Manchester City with possession and Manchester United on the break. At least they do that relatively well.
Just finally about this one before we move on, we've got an exclusive interview coming up with Harry Kane. Manchester City, Don, they did what they had to against Leicester in midweek, but now they'll be up against a back three. So the likelihood of whether it's Doku and Savinho with Marmoush through the middle, they'll be licking their chops at 2 wide players playing against the back three and getting into the space, will they not?
Absolutely. And Guardiola will have a plan. Possession will be the majority of that plan, but they have to try and find a way exploiting the back line for Man United that are not very good. Amorim loves the back three, and the only thing is with that back three, he seems to not have any consistency in terms of he's always moving the players around in them certain positions. So I look at Man United, And I just think they're there to be got at. They don't necessarily have loads of pace at the back. They're not exactly comfortable on the ball. So they're not a team that dictate, but it's not a problem because even under Solskjaer many years ago, their best form of defence was playing counter-attacking football, and they had speed on the counter. So it'll be fascinating to see if Man United can try and soak up a little bit of that, then try and hit City on the break, because that's been City's downfall all season, right? Every time they go forward and they commit bodies forward, when they leave themselves that little bit exposed, they can get hurt on the counter-attack. I just don't see where Man United's goals are going to come from. They're a shot-shy side. They're in a negative goal difference again for the umpteenth season in a row. It's a big game. I mean, what they can draw on Man United is when they played Arsenal a couple of weeks ago and they got a draw in that game, but I thought they were very, very good. I thought Arsenal would have walloped them, but they didn't. And Man United come out of that game with a lot of credit. So I think that's the type of game we're going to see. I think it'll be quite an open book. City will have all the ball, as Yanis just said. They'll try and penetrate with runs in behind from Marmoush because that's his strength. Have wide players that can try and get in behind their wing backs. But the tail of the tape is going to be United trying to hit them on the counter. As whether they're good enough to do it is another question.
Top 5 will qualify for the Champions League automatically next season from England. We're all confident that City will be in the top 5. They're currently 5th, aren't we, Don?
Yeah, I was looking at all the fixtures in the run-in. I was looking at Aston Villa, I was looking at Chelsea, I was looking at Newcastle, and Man City by far have got the very easier run-in. There's a scenario where the likes of Newcastle, Chelsea and Villa, they all sort of play each other and they've all got tough fixtures. So it's going to be a battle for those 3 teams that I've mentioned to try and show any sort of consistency because, as I said, they all play each other and they've got difficult games where after this game for Man City, their run-in is very, very kind. I know they play Crystal Palace and Everton, who are in good form, but I still expect them to have too much. Then after that, I could see a scenario where they go unbeaten. So top 5, because the coefficient is strong, is going to be Champions League football for the Premier League sides. And City, in my opinion, I think they'll get 4th. Then that's that one position between the 3 or 4 sides that I mentioned who can try and squeak, and I include Chelsea in that, who can try and squeak into that 5th. But I've got no doubt, I think, even though they have been quite poor at times, City, the run-in, I think it tells me that they'll make Champions League for sure.
And not that it matters, Yanis, between 5th, 4th or 3rd. Nottingham Forest 6 points ahead of them. City can catch them or not?
They could. I mean, I don't think it matters. I think both Forest and City will be in the top 5. Yeah. So, I didn't think Forest were going to be, but they continue to show, an incredible spirit, really, with limitations, right? But the one thing is their manager knows their limitations and plays to their strength, as we were talking about Ange and some of the other managers that seem to think that their teams can do more than they actually can.